Thank you. For more on what we know about the coronavirus, we're joined now by Dr. Anthony Fauci, his director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases. Dr. Fauci, it's a pleasure to have you this morning. Thank you for being here.
Good to be with you.
How concerned should we be?
Well, I don't think that this is a high risk right now for the American public, and the American public should not be worried, as it were, or frightened. But this is something we absolutely need to take seriously. And the health authorities in the various agencies of the government, Health and Human Services, Homeland Security, et cetera, are really taking this quite seriously. But there's a difference between taking something seriously and having the American public be frightened about it. We don't think that they should be, but we shouldn't blow this off. This is something that we really need to address. Of course, it really is, as you know from the news every day, more and more cases are appearing in China and even in countries outside of China.
Sure. Yet the WHO is not declaring this yet a global emergency. Is that the right move, or are they making a mistake?
Well, it's a controversial decision. You know, there are many people who say they should be doing it, but they have certain strict criteria that triggers that declaration of a public health emergency of international concern. Whether they're going to be doing it again, they keep going back. They may us revisit this in the next day or so, and you'll see they may make a change. But right now they've decided that it's not quite yet the time to do that. But as you know, there's a lot of people who disagree with that decision.
Yeah, for certain. Our pharmaceuticals reporter is sitting next to me, and she just led into our report, Meg Terrell did, on companies that are working on vaccines, the stocks, and et cetera, that could be impacted. Given the seat in which you sit, how quickly could we get a vaccine up and running, do you think?
Well, for example, we're working with one of the companies to develop a vaccine with a messenger RNA platform, and we're dealing with several of the companies that you mentioned regarding drugs. A phase 1 trial to determine safety of a vaccine, we think we'll be able to put material into a human in a safety trial within the next 3 months. And I think that's a pretty good number. I don't think that's an exaggeration or too optimistic. And then after that, it takes a few months to get enough data to know at least whether you're dealing with a compound that's safe. So 3 months from now to get into a human, another 3 months to get some data. But then the real problem is when you want to develop something to use for people, if you have to use it even on an emergency basis, that's going to take several months more. But the process has already started in developing vaccines, and as you mentioned just a moment ago, in starting to test some of the drug compounds as well as monoclonal antibodies.
One of the other issues, I think, is the trustworthiness of the Chinese. You've got 40 million people now under lockdown. Do you think the Chinese can be trusted on this issue, on when they say either they have it under control, they don't, given some of what's happened throughout history with SARS?
Well, they're doing much, much better this time around with the novel coronavirus than what happened with SARS back in 2002, 2003, in which was clear they were not being very transparent at all. And it was really an embarrassment for them because it really slowed down the response. From what we're looking at right now, the response here, they've been really quite transparent. I can't tell you exactly what's going on in China because I'm not there. But from the feedback we're getting in real-time basis, it's an enormous difference in a positive way comparing what they're doing now to what happened with SARS.
What are we doing at our borders, Meg? Are we screening people from Asia much more than we would have?
The CDC has established 5 airports, San Francisco, LAX, and Dr. Fauci can speak to this as well, that will intake all of the people who would fly out of Wuhan, although we know that Wuhan has closed down its airport, so people wouldn't be flying in.
Right.
But there is entry screening going on at those 5 airports. Dr. Fauci, I also wanted to ask you about what's understood about when this virus is contagious. Do patients have to be showing symptoms, have fever? Because we know that the patient who is in Washington State, at least we've heard, he wasn't showing symptoms when he came into the country. And now health authorities are tracking 43 of his close contacts. How likely is it that any of them could potentially get sick?
Well, it's unlikely, but I wouldn't be surprised if one of them did. But I think it's unlikely. We do not know now what the duration of time when someone is shedding virus before they develop symptoms. There are a number of viral illnesses, for example, like influenza, in which someone can shed virus for 24 hours or so before they actually get symptoms that would bring them to the notice of somebody. But we don't have definitive information right now about shedding a virus and symptomatology. But we're going to get that information pretty soon as these patients are starting to be studied. But if they were shedding virus before symptoms, it would not be surprising.
Dr. Fauci, quickly, if you were a U.S. business person right now, would you travel to China?
Well, when you say China is one thing, Wuhan is a different thing. China, I wouldn't mind traveling to, but the State Department is saying no travel to Wuhan.